We are halfway through our National Heritage Week celebrations, and today's quote comes from Samuel Sharp, who was appointed National Hero in 1975. On May 23, 1832, the day of Sharp's execution, he dressed carefully in a new white suit, and with firm and dignified steps, he walked to the Montego Bay marketplace to be hanged. He stood before the masses and said, "I have transgressed against the laws of the country and government, and with great violations, and I am come to be a sacrifice for it, but I will soon appear before a judge that is greater than all." He further went on to say, "I would rather die upon yonder gallows than to live in slavery." Even to the point of death, Samuel Sharp upheld the principle that all are created equal. He was driven by a collective concern and not just an individual need. Good day, I'm Arroyo Eubanks. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Jamaica Magazine. Coming up on the show today, additional housing solutions are being provided through Strategic Priority Number 5. We'll find out how. Also, we unearth an enduring part of our history in Maroons Today, Yesterday, Tomorrow, and hear from heroes through artistic expressions in the arts page. Before we break for the news, think on this. How are you being a hero?
Like being a hero because I'm proud to say the two boys that was in a burning house.
Good day, I'm Tamara McHale, and this is your GIS News for Wednesday, October 15. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller is providing each parliamentarian with access to $2 million and parish councils with access to another $5 million each to carry out cleanup exercises across the country. This is part of government's active response to the chikungunya virus. Stacey Ann Smith has more in this report.
The Prime Minister said the funds to the MPs and mayors are part of the $500 million allocation announced last week.
The objective is to reduce mosquito breeding sites, starting with the worst affected areas, as indicated by the mapping that has been done by the Ministry of Health.
Mrs. Simpson Miller was addressing members of Parliament in a special meeting at Jamaica House Tuesday. She revealed that the rest of the $500 million would be used to address critical emergency needs of the Health Ministry and carry out additional cleanup and vector control activities. This provision supplements $131 million already provided from the Consolidated Fund to the National Solid Waste Management Authority to deal with the backlog in garbage collection. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health received a donation of medication to treat chikungunya symptoms on Tuesday. Food for the Poor handed over 1,600 bottles of paracetamol valued at $7,040. At that function, Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Marion Bullock Ducasse reiterated that the public health sector had an adequate supply of paracetamol to treat chikungunya symptoms and outlined several of the brands approved by the ministry. They include Panadol, Panelix, Paradenc, Paradmol, APAP, Cetamol, Tylenol, Painol, Painex, Fitzroy paracetamol, Las paracetamol, and MK acetaminophen. Stacey Ann Smith reporting for GIS News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller also updated parliamentarians on government strategy to deal with the Ebola virus.
Mrs. Simpson Miller announced that the Ministry of Health and Jamaica Defence Force would be heading an integrated national coordinating team. The team will work within the framework of the country's emergency response and management mechanism that's now been activated for the Ebola prevention program.
The government of Jamaica is on high alert and is closely monitoring developments in the United States and Spain to learn lessons from the emergency management of these cases. I contacted one foreign government asking for assistance in terms of preparations and training of our health professionals.
Elsewhere, the Minister of Health, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, revealed that government would be embarking on simulation exercises to ensure that health workers are prepared to manage and know how to react if they have to deal with any Ebola case. These activities will include demonstration and practice sessions on how to correctly use personal protection equipment. He also indicated that an isolation facility has been identified and retrofitted specifically for Ebola, adding that the plan was not to treat patients in hospitals, but rather transfer them from isolation areas in those facilities to the special Ebola treatment facility. The parliamentary opposition, meanwhile, has signaled its full cooperation for the actions being taken by the government to deal with both Ebola and the chikungunya virus. Simone Wolf reporting for JIS News.
And National Security Minister Peter Bunting has called on Latin American and Caribbean countries to treat the Ebola virus as a threat to national security. Minister Bunting was speaking in Peru at the 11th Conference of Defense Ministers of the Americas, held from October 12 to 14. He said the devastation in African countries was clear evidence that the virus should not be taken lightly. Minister Bunting therefore urged regional countries to work together to prevent the spread of Ebola and other diseases throughout the region. He added that Jamaica was looking forward to the establishment of a military health system in emergency situations. In other news, the World Bank will be meeting with various Caribbean countries to examine and develop projects that are essential to economic development. World Bank President Jim Yum King is to meet with Caribbean ministers of finance and governors of central banks at a summit early next year. They will discuss projects to reduce debt and increase growth while addressing issues relating to climate change and high electricity rates. The World Bank Summit was proposed by Finance Minister Dr. Peter Phillips, who suggested that multilateral agencies meet to discuss how to assist Caribbean countries facing a high debt burden. And finally, rehabilitation work on 1.2 kilometers of the Spring Village Bushy Park Road in St. Catherine is far advanced. The $31.5 million project is being carried out as a joint venture between the Ministry of Transport and Jamaica Broilers Limited.
I think it is a good idea if we can have other company joining with us as government to see how we can work together to improve the infrastructure.
The Transport and Work State Minister viewed the progress of the 3-month road project a week ago. The work, which began in August, is estimated to be about 60% complete and involves resurfacing and patching. And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Tamara McHale. Thank you for watching.
Chikungunya is a viral infection transmitted when an Aedes aegypti mosquito bites an infected person and then bites someone else. Symptoms include high fever, headache, joint pain, muscle pain, and rash. If you suspect that you've been infected, take paracetamol such as Panadol, Cetamol, and Tylenol. Infants, children under 5 years old, pregnant women, the elderly, persons with sickle cell, and chronic illnesses such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease are at risk for more severe symptoms and must see a doctor for proper evaluation and monitoring. Fortunately, most cases of CHIKV are mild, but if your symptoms worsen, you need to see a doctor. For more info, call 1-888-1-LOVE from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. That number again, 1-888-663-5683.
Did you know that Samuel Sharp was well educated, housed and clothed, and was designated as his master's right-hand man? These entitlements, however, did not isolate him from the need for a basic human right, freedom. The upcoming feature highlights another important right, that of housing. The government is ensuring that low-income earners are afforded the opportunity to own their own home. Watch this. Creating social inclusion and protection for the most vulnerable Jamaicans through the provision of adequate housing solutions remains a major priority for the government of Jamaica. Examining housing financing for the neediest, increased public-private partnerships, strengthening law and order in informal communities, and reintroducing Operation Pride. Just some of these solutions that came out of the latest intervention by government to create more housing opportunities for all Jamaicans. This involved a partnership with the Caribbean Association of Housing Finance Institutions, CashFree, to explore the issues with stakeholders at a recent housing conference.
major challenge in terms of the housing sector in Jamaica, that of providing housing at an acceptable standard to those households who cannot demonstrate effective demand for even the most basic housing unit. Left to their own devices, these households have created and will continue to create unplanned informal settlements, most of which are devoid of both basic physical infrastructure as well as social amenities. Although this is a national problem, the state must take the lead in responding, despite the macroeconomic challenges.
To address the problem of inadequate housing financing, government has been working with its regional and international partners to find solutions.
We are looking at measures to do with different modalities in terms of financing for housing. We are looking at the no down payment in certain circumstances. This was tried before. It never worked, but we do believe that with some amount of refinement, we might be able to have that as one of the options on the table. We are also looking at the type of building materials that we utilize. In Jamaica, we have a tendency to want to build with just concrete and block. And we don't want to be open to other building systems and building materials. I think we're at the stage where we have to look at things like this. We need to look at our urban spaces. As we mentioned, some of it has fallen into a state of deterioration. The whole business of urban renewal, seeing how we can consolidate some of the lands we have in the urban spaces where infrastructure already exists.
Government cannot solve the home financing problem alone, so it's looked to partnerships with the private sector as well as regional and international partners.
The issues of lending and home ownership is central to the objectives of the members of the Caribbean Association of Housing Finance. And through this body, we seek to and continue to advocate for policies that support the expansion of housing to meet the needs of the people of the region.
An effective mobilization of savings and internal resources, equitable investment, and above all, good management are issues that still need our special attention.
At the recent Cash for Housing conference, Jamaica and its regional partners also explored the impact of crime on the housing market, especially informal settlements, often called squatter dwellings. One point of consensus: law and order needs to be strengthened in these communities.
Our recommendations are these: building relationship between police, the builders, social networking, proximity policing, social intervention programs, restructuring of community infrastructures.
These communities could therefore become more attractive housing options, negating the need to find land for housing elsewhere. The final major plan of action put forward at this critical housing conference was to re-establish a program that was quite useful in the past in helping the neediest afford homes. That's the Program for Resettlement and Integrated Development Enterprise, more popularly known as Operation Pride.
I wish at this stage to signal the intention of my ministry to execute a thorough reassessment of the program, as it represents the only realistic option available for tackling the problem of the increasing percentage of households being forced to develop formal, unregulated approaches to meet their housing demands. And we argue that the best option which the country has is to return to a revamped version of the Pride initiative, whereby the state utilizes the assets of land to facilitate the redevelopment and formalization of what are now informal settlements into structured, regulated communities.
The government of Jamaica forging ahead despite the economic challenges to create more solutions and put more Jamaicans in a place called home. The plantation on which Samuel Sharp lived was possibly located within the shadows of Maroon settlements. Sharp, like we are, must have been in awe of the Maroons' unwavering commitment to live free and unbound. We now visit with the heroes of yesterday who are still revered today.
The sound of the abang, the infectious beat of the drum, the effortless moves of the hips.
Welcome to Charleston Maroon Community.
They have been here for centuries, inheriting cultural expressions, a lifestyle that continuously mesmerizes locals and foreigners alike.
That the history of the Maroons, we show them. They show them and how proud they are at their history. It's very interesting to see how they survive for the British.
Jamaican Maroon descendants have a rich history: freedom, self-sufficiency, pride, the warrior spirit, family, spirituality. It is a legacy they mean to preserve for their children and children's children. A journey to Charlestown, one of Jamaica's major Maroon communities, reveals this cultural continuity in the architecture of the town.
Even though the entrance is small, this is where the Maroons would escape when being chased by the British.
Thatched roofs are still there, if not quite for dwelling purposes anymore. Living off the land is a Maroon staple. Today, subsistence farming remains a preoccupation for both the men and women in these communities. Passed down through the generations, self-sufficiency for the Maroons means survival. Being independent is indispensable.
The thrust of the Maroon Council under my tenure is to really use the culture, the heritage, what our foreparents left us, what our ancestors left us, to drive economic development. And it's been rewarding because really and truly so much is happening. We have a Savoyard, which you will see, we have a museum.
In Charlestown, Savoyard embodies a consciousness of the economic value in preserving and showcasing the Maroon culture. So young, old, men, women, all play a part in teaching visitors what it means to be a Maroon, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
It's all right. Down here is a nice spot. We're going to clean it up. We have a sound system. We're going to play music and try to do something of our own. We're heading towards building up a proper kitchen, a proper bathroom, storeroom and everything. Further on, we need 2 rooms that people can come, and if they don't want to go back home at the same time, they can have it to rest.
Food and drink is important to the Maroon way of life. The intricacies of jerking a wild hog on pimento wood must be done deftly. And for those wanting a taste of this culinary culture, the people of Charlestown are preserving their unique talents through a food and winemaking company and Riverside Lounge.
When we do have people that make buster, it's showing entrepreneurship, people who want to own their own business.
How about a paki stuffed with bami, pork, callaloo, or even seasoned ackee, packaged and ready for sale? And then there's the practice of concocting juices from available food items.
It's good because even the men, they had 2 special wines that they come for, peanut and goon.
Education in a Maroon village is something that takes place both within and outside the community. Many children are sent into the wider Jamaican community for schooling. When they return home, parents and grandparents are there to impart the knowledge of their African ancestry. The children, some of whom are given African names, are taught how to cook on wood fire, dance to the rhythm, and use the drums for not only entertainment purposes, but more importantly, as a means of communicating. Hard work and education are crucial, but so too is recreation, like relaxing by the river. Maroons in today's society are definitely not evading their culture. The Maroons then and their descendants now are embracing their culture. 14-year-old Shamara Smith is proud of her background and readily makes herself available to be trained as a tour guide.
I'm quite comfortable being a Maroon. Yeah, I feel good. I'm proud about my culture. It's good because it kind of helped me in school. When I do history, I kind of go ahead of the class.
Here is some information. If you think Maroon is in your family root, check out these surnames.
The JIS will be having its first poster competition. And guess what? It's all about our heritage. The theme, We Are Free. All secondary level students are eligible to compete, and the posters can either be digitally designed or illustrated. The rules are simple. First, complete an entry form online from the JIS website. Posters will be judged on your interpretation of the topic, originality, neatness, and presentation. Digital posters should include only the images from a collection accessible on the JIS website. Posters should be no longer than 11 inches by 17 inches. All digital posters should be submitted electronically through a cloud storage service such as Dropbox, SkyDrive, or Google Drive, while illustrations must be taken into the head office or Montego Bay office. Posters should be submitted by Friday, October 31, 2014. Please ensure that you keep a copy of your poster after submission. Yes, there are going to be prizes and surprises for the top 3 students and the top participants. Just in case you need more details to be part of the fun, call JIS at 926-359024, extension 2137, or email heritageposter@jis.gov.jm. Don't delay, get started on your poster now.
Neville Dawes' poem, Sam Sharp, immortalizes the work of the hero who sacrificed his life for liberty and equality. Our artists have continued to chant the same message through the ages, celebrating our heroes, our people, and their journey through word and music.
Don't you worry, my friend, you'll be fine. 'Cause I'll be there every time I look out for you.
It was an evening of literary expression and a day and a night filled with musical delights. It's a recap of Gungu Walk and a tribute to Miss Lou on this week's edition of the Arts Page.
He's just straight in offense, sense of skills. I'm telling Pan's a lie. We tell him how the parents them is still alive. But my mother, she dead 12 years now, and my father, he dead 5.
No, my heart sympathize with her. Me say, God and Mary, girl, you're right. But hear me mind, thank God for me belly. Going to bus tonight, so run the big fan some stale bread. Beg John some coconut eye. Chat loud, make grudgeful Emma know.
We're going to eat inside. A little rain could not dampen the spirits of poetry lovers gathered for an evening with Miss Lou. The concert and exhibition staged at the Louis Bennett Garden Theatre on Miss Lou's birthday featured a star-studded lineup. Faye Ellington, Amina Blackwood Meeks, Dion Silvera, Karen Harriet Wilson, and Sheldon Shepherd all expressed their love for the Patois Queen while showing off their command of her extensive repertoire.
And Nancy was so anxious to go look work, and Nancy forget to say prayers. Cause every day, and Nancy go to him altar, and him say to the ancestors, you see I am going on a journey, and it is with you that this journey can be safe. But the hungry belly picked them in a Nancy head, him forget to say the prayers.
Me start to call out, Aki! Beer! Right planting going poo! Me got red fruit! Here the girl back on me. Me too!
MC Dion Silveira did a clever impersonation reminiscent of Miss Lou's veranda when she would tell stories to friends and neighbors. And if those performances weren't enough to satisfy the audience, the patrons were treated to a ring-ding enactment with the students from Mona Prep School. Sunday, September 7 was the 95th anniversary of the birth of the late Dr. the Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley, a cultural icon who brought global recognition for the Jamaican dialect. Miss Lou will love you.
Would you let me see beneath your beautiful?
3 stages, more than enough platforms to showcase the best of Jamaica's music and art. The third Gungu Walk World Alternative Music and Arts Festival was a hit with patrons who didn't have to wait through long band changes to hear their favorites. Art and music lovers who turned up at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts saw more than 30 bands, spoken word acts, dance workshops, and artworks on display.
I sell out, but a fire you jump up to me. So the wickedness of them must roll me. When times get dark, shall love not be out at the start. In a Rastafari way. When I hit the pan, I feel your approval. Be sure nobody no perfect. Show me your man when never been perfect. I've got my gods up, you got your issues. Make it work. It's been a while, still we stick it. Through thick and thin, and you always standing right by me.
The Alternative Music Festival was a platform for emerging acts, with the full endorsement of the Ministries of Culture, Tourism and Entertainment.
We've been able to accomplish it since day one, since the first year, because the people are there, you know, they're not being exposed necessarily, but we know who they are. We see them, like I go and see them in small venues and that kind of thing. I want to bring them all together so they can share their audiences and people can go, oh, this also exists. I can, you know, I like this as well, I like that as well. So everybody brings their crowd and they share.
Não te esquecerei jamais. Teu olhar me traz paz. Eu te quero demais.
That's the sound of reggae in Portuguese, coming from international artist Brazilian Soraya Drummond, who thrilled the audience. Patrons were also captivated by the skill and grace of Brazilian martial arts group Capoeira. From Miss Lou to Gungu Walk, September started off with a heavy dose of arts and culture, providing family-oriented events. This has been the Arts Page.
Please share your answers to the question, how are you being a hero, on our Facebook or Twitter pages. Remember to continue viewing our programs on our website or YouTube channel. I'm Arroyo Eubanks. Continue to be empowered and to empower someone. That way, you will realize the hero in you.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.